Hello and welcome to this video all about Jupiter in Gemini during 2024. We are the astrologers of Pandora Astrology. I'm Jamie Kale Miller. I'm in Berkeley, California.
And I'm Julia Mikos in Pioneer, California.
Well, you might know that Jupiter is the bringer of luck and opportunity in our skies. And Jupiter changes sign about every year. And Jupiter is going to be moving into a new sign here in 2024, and that's Gemini, which is special and interesting for particular reasons, which we'll tell you about shortly. But it's just so great to know where Jupiter is and what Jupiter is doing in your own chart, because whatever area of your chart Jupiter is moving through and whatever planets he may be touching on in your chart can be areas of your life where you are prone to receiving special opportunities, lucky happenstances, kismet, and a feeling of confidence that expands you and makes you want to take those opportunities. Jupiter's the Santa Claus of the zodiac and always a good thing to know about. This year, Jupiter is traveling through the sign of Gemini, and shortly we're going to show you that in action, that in motion, with some important milestones to pay attention to. But Julia, why is it special that Jupiter is in Gemini? And is that a good thing or not so much?
No, it's really interesting because in traditional astrology, every sign and planet has a placement that they apparently do really well in, a costume that fits right, which is a metaphor that you often use.
Mm.
And then there are costumes and planets that don't necessarily fit so well. And what's interesting is that Jupiter in Gemini traditionally is considered to be that weird fit, they don't line up as well together. But I find that so strange with Jupiter and Gemini because they have so much in common, like so much in common. So I kind of think that I don't know if this is an exception to the rule or you can just kind of find a way of making them work because there's so much overlap. But I mean, they both love to learn. They both communicate. They both like to move around and see things. They both like to explore. Yeah, what don't you see a lot of overlap between those two?
I know, I know. When I think of all of the planet in its sign of detriment situations in the whole zodiac, everything else is more obvious than this one.
Yeah.
Everything else just, and I mean, the corollary would be Mercury in Sagittarius, which also to me is like, I mean, how bad can that be, really? And I think they kind of feel similar too. And so here's how I think about it. I think of Jupiter as being big and jolly, tall of stature, maybe large in girth, just sort of radiating a very big energy and sort of always talking louder than everybody else in the room. Sometimes the occasional like big hat, no cattle kind of a dude, perhaps. But like I think that the Gemini costume is a little too small for Jupiter and
Hmm.
shows up looking kind of tight. Like you'll see in a movie, occasionally you see a character who's kind of like pompous and wearing clothes that would have fit him maybe like a decade ago, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the vibe that we're looking at with Jupiter and Gemini. Also, Jupiter is that side of us that could be really opinionated, that has thought it all through, formulated a worldview, has a perspective and an understanding of the world, right? And so Jupiter likes to pontificate. And Gemini is all about words, very verbal, very much the chatterbox, right? So this is where you get that person who can just like talk and talk and talk, signifying nothing, and maybe talking from like a perspective that's so grand that they've absolutely lost themselves in the forest and couldn't find a tree if it smacked them in the face. Or it can be a sea of details too, just like wandering round and round and round the point and never actually arriving there.
Mhm.
Just
Yeah.
so much enjoyment in all of the little rabbit paths through the forest.
Hmm.
Like, oh, let's go this way and that way and that way. And like, I'm thinking of a beloved person with Jupiter and Gemini in my life who occasionally I go to him and I ask a question about history because he is so knowledgeable. I mean, this person speaks 7 languages
Yeah.
and is incredibly well read, well educated. And when I ask him a question about history, it's so hard to get him to like, I don't know, do anything other than sort of it's almost like he can't generalize. He gets into
Yeah.
the weeds and then travels around the weeds,
Yeah.
and then I kind of have to pick a generalization out of
Yeah.
the totality of what he's saying.
Yeah.
So Jupiter and Gemini can sort of blather a lot and point to a lot of things, but never really get to the point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It lacks a little of the big picture.
And maybe loves the words, the
Yeah.
verbosity, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Maybe loves the process of math, but never really solves the proof.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So, but let's think about what this means in terms of a transit, because Gemini does have some really special abilities, and being verbal is one of them, and curiosity is another, and writing and voice would be a third. So I'm thinking that a Jupiter in Gemini transit could bring confidence to all those people out there who want to be writing something this year. I
Yes.
think it's a great year for a writing project.
Yes. I agree. Great
You
year
know,
for a
like
writing project.
maybe
Great.
NaNoWriMo will be more populated this year than usual.
What's NaNoWriMo?
Yeah, it's National Novel Writing Month.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Cool. Yeah.
NaNoWriMo. Yeah, it's in, I think it's November
Huh.
every year. Yeah, this organization, you can go and like register. I'm going to write a novel this month, and then thousands of other people are doing it with you.
Cool. That's very
Yeah,
cool.
it's
Yeah.
pretty. So maybe there'll be more of those this year because Jupiter's in Gemini.
Yeah. Jupiter and Gemini, I think, would be a great year to learn a new language or learn anything. I think that that would be a great way of doing it. And I mean, both of them, I mean, Jupiter and Gemini just love to move around. They really do love exploring. They like novelty. They want to see new things. So maybe a good year for travel.
Yes, I would think so. I think that would be very inviting. I think it could be a good year for discovering one's voice
Yes.
through writing, through speaking, through journaling, you
Mm.
know, to discover like, why am I here? What is my message? What have I come here to say?
Yeah.
Um, and also a good year for research, I would think.
Yes. Very much so. Very, very cool. Wow.
One's curiosity. So let's look at the timing of this. And here's what that is going to look like this year. So on the right side of the screen, you can see Jupiter entering his span during July of 2024, leaving Taurus. And I'll show you all this in motion on the chart on the left shortly. But Jupiter enters his span in July, begins traveling through the degrees that he will retrograde later, right there during the summer and fall of 2024. October 9th, Jupiter turns retrograde, continues describing a sine curve back here, and this is the retrograde portion, backing up through all of these degrees to February 4th, where he turns direct, and then passes through all these degrees a third time and exits the span finally in May of 2025. So let's watch this in motion. This chart is set to begin May 1st, 2024. Here's Jupiter traveling through Taurus, and you're going to see him leave Taurus and move over here into Gemini quite shortly. Right there. So here's where Jupiter moves into Gemini, May 26th, and then it enters the span at 11 degrees in July. So let's watch that happen. Cruising along Gemini to 11 degrees. So there he is entering in 11 degrees. And now here's the interesting part for you, the viewer. If you have anything in your chart in 11 to 21 degrees of Gemini, or in Virgo, Sagittarius, or Pisces, then those planets will undoubtedly be transited by Jupiter this year and may be subject to that special charisma, enthusiasm, confidence, luck, and opportunity that I spoke of. So watching Jupiter cruising along here through the degrees until October 9th, and see he's already slowing down, and boom, turns retrograde right there. We know this because the little red RX symbol shows up. That means retrograde. And now we will see Jupiter backing up through those degrees And this is the actual retrograde period of Jupiter this year. Jupiter will go direct on February 4th. Right there. He goes direct and then finishes out the span by May of 2025, and see him speeding up. And then he'll leave Gemini right there and move into Cancer, where he'll do the same dance next year. So while Jupiter is retrograde in particular, October 9th to February 4th, Julia, how do you think that people should handle that part of it this year?
Well, retrograde times. They're generally considered a little bit more challenging than when the planet is direct. And with Jupiter, it's never that challenging, but there are some things to be aware of with Jupiter, because every planet, even the lucky planets, have their issues that we need to be aware of. They can run amok in our lives. And with Jupiter, it's overdoing things, overextending things, being arrogant, being too big for one's britches, not knowing when to stop. So I think we're a little bit more prone to that side of Jupiter during the retrograde cycle.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that's all we have for you today. Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. If you want more of this good stuff, please like this video and share it with your friends. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's where you can get more stuff like this. You can always find us at pandoraastrology.com. And we have monthly workshops on Patreon for a subscription of only $15 a month. And in the June workshop, you can find out more about how this Jupiter is showing up in your chart. And until next time, we'll see you around the cosmos. Find our site at pandoraastrology.com to get a reading with one of us, and find us on Patreon for workshops and classes. And we'll see you around the cosmos.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.